Hi, my name is Elnisa Allgood. This is WORT. This is WORT Access Hour. Tonight we're doing a program, The New Drivers of Social Impact. I'm in the studio with Carmela Glenn of Just Bakery, Ken Snoddy of Race to Destiny, Carrie, last name? of Madison Reading Project, and Matt of FoodWorks Madison. You can introduce your last name later. So let's get started. Tonight we're going to be talking about what we can say about how the nonprofit and the social, basically how the social impact world is changing, moving into kind of a hybrid between for-profit and nonprofit, and focusing a little bit more on not tax statuses, but on how you make a difference in a community and how you drive social change. And we've brought together these 4 projects, and I'm going to start off by asking each of them to introduce themselves and to talk briefly about what it is that your project does. Let's start with Carrie.
So I'm Carrie Castry with Madison Reading Project. I am the outreach director and handle the day-to-day operations. Madison Reading Project provides books and literacy programming to at-risk kids in South Central Wisconsin. And we do that through various schools and other nonprofit organizations that support the same type of at-risk kids.
Carmela?
Hi, my name is Carmela Glenn. I work for Madison Area Urban Ministry, and I am the coordinator for the Just Bakery program. The Just Bakery program is a 3-month training program. I like to say in 3 months you learn how to be a commercial baker, but that's just a piece of it. We do case management through housing, driver's license, childcare, really fulfilling those wraparound services and also help them become employed in a living wage job.
Ooh, Ken?
Yes, hello. My name is Ken Snoddy, and I'm the owner and a facilitator for Race to Destiny. What Race to Destiny is, it is a innovative board game that is engaging and interactive. It's an engaging and interactive type of simulation of a board game where participants will face many of the same gut-wrenching choices that young black men have to make, which in the real world have potentially lifelong consequences. Many of these choices are oftentimes made while in survival mode, and it's my hope that it will challenge folks' thoughts, perceptions, and engage in a richer, deeper conversation about what takes place in this community.
Cool. Matt?
So my name is Matt Pfeifferich. That's my last name. And I'm from FoodWorks Madison. And FoodWorks Madison is a brand new community service organization that was designed to kind of harness the power of food and the shared table and how food can sometimes drop barriers and get people talking and get people sharing in new and less sort of fraught ways. And our first project was called First Course, and it's short-term job training for professional kitchen jobs. And it comes from 2 problems. One problem is a chronic unemployment in some communities in Madison, and the other problem is that a lot of our kind of great Madison foodie-based businesses are having a chronic job shortage. So we just wanted to connect those 2 dots. And in the training, it's 3 weeks long. All the students get a graduation bonus for attending class, and we try really hard to place them in a decent job in Madison's food industry.
Excellent. Thank you. So I think what I want to do next is really just kind of start with why, for those of you who've started your organization, why? Like what problems were you attempting to address, and what was your impulse in terms of what you thought you could do to address those issues? And I'm going to not just do a round robin, I'm going to just mix things up. Let's start with Carmela.
So just For people that don't know about Madison Area Urban Ministry, we've been around for about 45 years, and we're a social justice agency in Madison. We work with people formerly incarcerated and help them with wraparound services. And about 10 years ago, we realized that a lot of the people we work with were having a hard time finding employment. And so we started looking into who could do that, and we tend to take those things on ourselves. So we, there's a really great story behind it, but it's kind of long. So we received some seed money from Willie Street Co-op, $1,000 about 10 years ago, and gripped and hung on to it. And about 4 years ago, the city put out some RFPs for some training money available. One of our agency's goals is to never cut into the pie of what's already being dished out for nonprofits. So when this new money came up, it was our time to jump. And we knew that food business was the one area that is the most forgiving for people who have been formerly incarcerated. If you are qualified and you know what you do, you know how to handle yourself on a line, as Matt can vouch for, or you know how to handle yourself in a kitchen and you have those basic skills down, you can get hired. That box that you have to check off, what I've done in my past, is pretty irrelevant. So we knew that that was the area that we wanted to go to, was to stay in food, and we went with commercial baking. One, because we were looking for more living wage jobs, and in the baking field there tends to be this higher growth potential quicker, and Madison has quite a few large scale baking around. So Village Earth, and then Gardner's was here, which is now another name, and I always mispronounce it and say a bad word. So
please don't do that.
And so we decided that we would that was the area that we needed to fulfill, and so Just Bakery was born, and we started in a church kitchen, and now we have our own commercial space through fundraising, and our classroom and everything is all together. So yeah.
Excellent. And then Matt, like Carmela also mentioned that you've also chose kind of like the food industry as a starting point for.
Yeah, and that actually, I mean, I mentioned that this notion of connecting dots, we wanted to fill a need with another need, which is really exciting for me personally. I liked what Carmela said about not slicing the pie. These were two problems that really existed. I didn't have to go looking for something to do. These were things that just kind of dropped in my lap. And I had some friends in the food industry, and I actually was really upset by the Race to Equity report, which came out. And I think probably I see everybody here nodding, but for those of you who are at home, the short version of it is that there was a report issued by an organization called the Wisconsin Council on Children and Families that discovered that on a whole lot of really important metrics, I think there was 30 or 40 of them, Wisconsin in general and Madison and Milwaukee in particular are among the worst places in the nation to be a black person. And it just was super upsetting. And a lot of people have done a lot of work since then. A lot of people have done some personal work. I went for a walk with a friend of mine, and we were upset, and we kind of didn't do anything after that. Professionally, we both did some personal stuff. And then it came up again when Tony Robinson was killed. And we kind of remembered that first conversation. And soon around then, this friend who owns a restaurant said, and he's now become a co-founder with me. He said, the crazy thing is right now we're having a really hard time finding people to hire. And one of the statistics in the Race to Equity report is that, in particular, young black men have a 26% unemployment rate. So I said, Johnny, seems like we ought to be able to connect these dots. And when I meant Johnny Hunter from the Underground Food Collective. And those people who know the Underground Food Collective know that they're a really important and strong Madison institution. And they also have a lot of credibility in this town. And Johnny said, I'm going to call the mayor's office. And so he did. And we've kind of been working towards running our classes ever since.
Excellent. And a perfect kind of segue, Ken, because your Race to Destiny board game deals with issues around young Black men and how, society treats them here, especially here in Madison. It's Dane County focused, right?
That is correct. Just like Matt had said, at the time, and what led me to do what I do, which is creating an innovative training module, was around the time that the Race to Equity came out. I felt and thought there should be another way to get and think about the numbers, and that's what kind of led me to try to marry the numbers with some sort of an activity where people could then be involved in and then have a richer, deeper conversation around these numbers and not just let it fade away.
Cool. Carrie, you guys deal with, I know one of the issues that you guys have been dealing with is finding reading materials for families with children of color. Could you
Absolutely.
tell me?
Well, and two, we were founded also on the Race to Equity Report's statistic that 2/3 of at-risk kids don't have a single book in their home. And the idea of that, knowing that I'm constantly picking up books off the floor because my kids have overflowing bookshelves of books they don't read, books that aren't getting, used in the same way that these kids would really be able to put them to good use. The founder, Rowan Childs, actually decided after the Race to Equity report came out that something needed to be done. Libraries are a great resource, but if you don't have the means to get to one, then you don't go. And while the model is very much the same of what we do versus what the library does, there is a difference between borrowing a book and having ownership of it. So we find it very important for kids to get excited about reading. And to stay excited about reading, and that's really where our programming, as well as our book giving, has made a big impact.
And I know, actually, I believe all of your programs have this real kind of tangible, hands-on component to it. You have did it just happen, or is it still going on, a reading challenge that's kind of...
We have the Read Like Mad board game, which is going on, which it's our second year. This year we've got a board game for kids as well as for adults, and there's a minimal charge to get you into the game, and for every book you read, you pledge whatever amount of money you'd like, and that money goes directly back to the organization, but it gets you into win lots of fun prizes as well as our large grand prizes, and all of those wrap up after 8 weeks. We're currently in the middle of the Read Like Mad program, and it finishes up in, I'm going to forget the exact date, but I want to say the end of October.
Okay. And is tangibility having people do what, with Just Bakery, learning how to bake, but they also learn how to sell the products that they've made as well. Is that helpful in terms of introducing them to kind of a new way, I guess, of...
Well, I think what we have found is that the population that we work with so if you get into the evidence-based practice with people who have been incarcerated, there's this whole antisocial behavior that comes of it. And we know that comes before incarceration, but then you incarcerate someone and you tell them, take care of yourself, nobody else is going to do it, and you need to do it. And then we teach them how to be, this narcissism of I only got me, and then tell them to go play nice on release day. And people have no skills. And what we found was that some of the easiest way to get to people is through hands-on learning. So not only do they literally have their hands in the dough with food and cooking, but as we teach them, their math is hands-on. We literally bring in like buckets of water and measure out the 16 tablespoons for a cup, and we measure things out and teach them. And when we're doing the Serve Safe, their National Restaurant Serve Safe certificate, it's doing Jeopardy and playing bingo. And it's really, I don't want them to just learn how to do it. I want them to know how to do it. So all of it is that thinking that it's kind of like when they say, if you want to remember something, write it down. Well, doing something kind of remakes it. And they do it over and over. One thing we all know about food is if you're bad or if you're good, you always have to be one. You know, McDonald's might not be the best one in the world, but if you go to China, you're going to get the same hamburger with the same 2 pickles and the sprinkle of onions and da-da-da-da-da as you're going to get in Georgia. And so repetitiveness in food is very, very, very important. So that whole hands in the dough and doing it over and over and over.
And can you build a board game? You obviously wanted people to kind of do something a little bit more tangible in their learning experiences.
Absolutely, I did. I did create a board game that goes hand in hand with this report. That, again, it allows people to experience some of the stuff that folks from this challenge group also experiences. And then I hope that through that experience, it allows them to shift their lens or even their paradigm. And then hopefully the work that they do, they can take that experience and let that have a more causal factor or just play a different role as opposed to the traditional role that we currently do in terms of everybody that provides services to these young men in this situation.
And then obviously, Matt, like you're giving people like kitchen skills. Right?
Yeah, we spent 2 hours a day practicing using knives. But it was pretty interesting actually about tacticality, I guess. We had 4 students in our first test, and 3 of our 4 students, English was their second language, or in one case, third language. And they were totally solid in class. They kept up. They learned the French words. It might have took them 2 or 3 times, but they learned what a brunoise means and what Maillard reaction means. And they were really fine. And then we did some quizzes, and they had a really hard time with the quizzes. And they were actually really kind of a little bit demoralized. And the quizzes were, frankly, pretty simple. And what I learned from that is that this is just not how everybody learns. And in my way of learning in school and so forth, that kind of notion of like you learn stuff and then you have a quiz, and when you process it through your written mind, the mind that can write, it's another way of learning. But for a lot of people, that's really scary. And I knew they knew it, but it shut them down when they sat down with a piece of paper and a pencil. So it was really a good lesson for me that tactical way of learning is actually kind of a secret path around some of those cultural barriers.
It is, yeah. People learn. I know, I'm very audio, but I'm also I like visual learning and doing things that falls into that as well. But I've been very blessed as well, like that. I can do book learning very well if I pay attention, which sometimes I don't. So each of you, your goals are to create a broader social outcomes to what it is that you do. How do you guys attempt to communicate that that larger value that you're generating to your partners or the general public? Whoever wants to start.
I think that with Race to Destiny and my game, the value that I think it adds, which is both, I don't want to say scary, but actually it is kind of scary in terms of trying to allow us a space where we can have a conversation around race when it seems to be one of the biggest topics and issues that's kind of going on besides the hurricanes and all the other natural disasters that are going on around the world. That one is still around. It was around way before, and I think it's going to be around afterwards. And at some point, we're going to have a conversation. And I'm not saying I'm leading it, but we need to have it and not just have it be about numbers.
I agree. Okay.
I think for us, just having the general public be more aware and more hands-on. I know I grow up in a somewhat bubble. I grew up on the north side of Madison. I live in Sun Prairie now, but I've lived here my entire life, and I feel like I lived in this comfortable little bubble, and I didn't know any better. And I think it's always really eye-opening to people that I talk to all the time that they're completely unaware kids don't have books in their home. Like, that just isn't something they've ever thought about. And when you think about a child starting school and not having books and not being read to and not having that constant, vocabulary and being spoken to all the time, they're really at a disadvantage going into, elementary school, where their peers have maybe been read to half an hour every night since, birth. A half an hour every night up to age 5 will make such a difference in a child's vocabulary and their literacy and their learning and their ability to keep up with their peers. And all these families need are a little bit of help. And we can do that either through modeling behavior at a story time and providing them with books, and providing organizations who already support families with those books. And that's really something that we like to talk about with our potential donors, as well as bringing them in to our center where they help us process books. Books that come in through donation are stamped with our logo. They're gone through to make sure there's not big scribbles through it or pages torn out. And it allows people to think beyond the book as a book, and what that actually means to a family.
And I know one of the things I was having a conversation with Rowan about was the need for books that represent children of color, not just for other families of color, but there's just a growing last couple generations of interracial families. Absolutely. And you have white grandparents raising, their biracial grandchild, and
there's so many different levels, whether it comes from, a biracial family. You have families who've moved from, outside of the United States. I mean, there's just so many opportunities for kids to see themselves, but to see themselves in a book. Mm-hmm. There's something so much more tangible about that, where, they're the hero or the heroine, or, they're the ones that are the main character. That's huge for a kid's self-esteem. And there just aren't enough books out there like that. And we're having to make those purchases because they're not coming in through donations, because they're either not getting them themselves, or they're not aware that they exist. So, but they're definitely out there, and there are definitely opportunities for families to be able to have that in their home.
So as far as for Madison Area Urban Ministry, even just as a whole, and then you add on the Just Bakery, is that I think, just the community and as a whole understanding that most people, 97%, that go to prison come home. And
that's a big deal, because a lot of people don't think about that. They think they're off to prison.
They're off to prison. Forget about them. You're not, they're not moving next door to you. And they are. People are coming home, and they are moving into your neighborhood. They're going to be your neighbor. And doesn't it make sense to have them educated and employed? that's all most people want to do, is take care of their family and live what we would consider the dream. There's barriers, and there's trauma-based barriers, and there's alcohol and drug-based barriers, and if we can educate more people on them, and for people to realize that, sit down and there's not one time that I haven't sat down, a community member with a student of mine who's on black and white, they would have been afraid to walk down the street with, maybe. But you sat down and they told them their story, and it changed that person forever. Just listen to where someone's come from. These aren't monsters. They're children and young adults who have been through things, and just educating the community on, most of us just want to live in a nice, safe environment, and so do they. So just educating people on that is huge.
Ken or Matt?
I feel like FoodWorks has been pretty lucky. It's pretty easy for us to tell the story of First Course, and I think we've inherited sort of a conversation about jobs and the rhetoric about jobs and employment from our kind of political culture, and every politician talks about jobs and promises jobs. And so we're able to say, like, we actually know where the jobs are, and we know how to make people ready for these jobs. So people find that completely uncontroversial. And what's also easy is that we actually can speak from that employer side that, yep, these people really do have the jobs and they really want these skills. So it's a really easy box to check. And then also we're finding that people want to work and they're willing to work hard, and you really have to work hard in food service. I mean, you're on your feet, it's difficult, it's fast, it's hot, there's bad lighting, you have to wake up early, you have to stay up late. And there are people who are like, I don't care, I want to do these jobs. So that's really easy. And for people who are maybe really interested in what we're doing and they want to know more, what I've been telling people is that I want to sneak people into the middle class. And I think picking up on what Carmela said about, there's something special about food jobs, that the sort of meritocracy is still alive. Like, if you can do the work, you're hired. Obviously, if you start not showing up on time and you cause a ruckus at work, it's a whole different story, but you really get a chance. And that's a really powerful wedge that we can use. And I also think that Madison has a really strong tradition of entrepreneurism in food. And I have a bunch of friends who work in the so-called service industry, and they also take really good care of each other. So a surprise when we were teaching the first course of First Course, was that all of our students who were really hard workers, and even some of them had a lot of experience in the food industry. One young man had been working at Oscar Mayer and lost his job, of course, when Oscar Mayer closed. He had never heard of the Willie Street Co-op. So Why would he know that that's a pretty good place to get a job? Because he just never heard of it. So there was a piece that I kind of came to start calling social capital, which was that those of us who were connected to a lot of these, small food-based businesses like Underground Butcher and like Quince and Apple and like the Willie Street Co-op, and, I could make a long list, that we can make those introductions. And it's sort of very much, again, like what you guys are all saying, that our students would never have a reason to have a conversation with Tori Miller, but we got them sitting at the same table and they told each other their stories, and that made it so when they went to apply for that job, they had that extra little, their resume went to the top of the pile.
Right. And there's tons of people who don't even know who Tori Miller are.
Sorry. Yes. Tori Miller is the proprietor of L'Etoile and Gray's and Suzhou and Estrella. So he's got a lot of jobs that he can take people.
He's a busy guy. And you mentioned one of the other topics that we wanted to dive into, the entrepreneurial kind of aspect of each of your organizations to a degree, whether or not it's from how you're approaching the work you're doing, or how you're getting people involved into your projects and program. we consider each of your programs to be social entrepreneurial, but what does that kind of mean for each of you? You want to start?
For me, it means that most of the time I don't know what I'm doing. And I think that sometimes doesn't feel awesome, but it keeps me honest, and it keeps me trying to be a good listener instead of throwing my elbows around thinking I know what's best. I think that kind of humility and maybe that approach is something that is an entrepreneur's superpower, which is paradoxical. I think a lot of people assume that entrepreneurs always know what to do and they have some singular vision, but the real truth is it's pretty messy and pretty sloppy, and there's a lot of adaptation.
A lot of adaptation. It's like learning when something's just not going right and you need to like change it quickly. Ken?
I just want to say I want to give a big plug and a shout out to all the folks that made the Social Accelerator program what it was. Some of the groups that were part of that really got it going were the Doyen group, the Horizon,
Co-working,
and Collaboration for Good. And I mean this just from the bottom of my heart, because even if you have a good program, the business aspect of doing all this is a whole different beast and world. Mm-hmm. And to be able to come in contact with other folks who are struggling just as much. Everybody's struggling. It's just a matter of where you're at in the struggle and trying to figure out how you can navigate the course of getting your project or your proposal off the ground. And it's not like we have to reinvent or invent the wheel.
I think networking has been a huge portion of everything, because somebody knows somebody that knows somebody. It's that 6 degrees of separation almost of saying,
In Madison, it's 3.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's
yeah.
true. That's very true. But it doesn't matter where you go, or someone hears, oh, you need book donations. I've got books, or, I work for a school and we'd love to have you talk to our PTO or whatever it is. I feel like there's always somebody to talk to. There's always somebody who knows something, or someone who's in need. And, sometimes those people know the people that have the money, when unfortunately the money is what you're always looking for when you're in a nonprofit sector. So I would say networking is probably the biggest portion of it.
Tangible, intangible social capital. And it's one of those things where I believe that it's frequently undervalued when you have it, but when you don't have it, like you're very aware of like that you can't make the connections that you need, and you're trying and you're working 10 times harder, and it seems like you're getting a half step for every half a mile that somebody else is going. And social capital is like huge.
With Just Bakery, just a little bit different as far as the social entrepreneur. So what ended up happening to Just Bakery when you're teaching commercial baking, you have lots of product. So we had to figure out what to do with it. So it became a business that self-supports the program. So for a lot of businesses in the area, we make product and deliver, and for hospitals. So what we're trying to do is, which was part of my pitch, which we'll talk about, the dreaded pitch.
You did excellent.
Thank you. I think that was my biggest learning thing. Like Ken was saying, the business end, when you're, passionate. I've been in community work and working in prisons and doing social work for 20 years. And then all of a sudden I became a coordinator of a business, and I'm like, wait, I don't know if I know how to do that part. So the learning curve of putting your mind in a box of, okay, now I have to think about money. Wait, no, I work for a nonprofit. I don't have to think about money. We know you got to think, So anyways, with Just Bakery, that it's economically smart because we are trying to be to a point where we are 85% self-sustainable so that we won't disappear depending on who's giving out money. We want it to always be around. So in a little different entrepreneurship model, it is modeled to be able to eventually support itself.
Which is excellent. Excellent. All right. Actually, I'm going to follow up with you, Carmela. So not only are you guys like moving towards 85% self-supported, but you're considering doing retail?
Yes. So some really great stuff have came out of our pitch. We had some awesome people at the table. So we are working with Central Library. We've been offered space there. We have also been offered space at UW Day Clinic. So we are in talks with a couple of places and talking about some grants to be able to cover costs for training. I got some awesome mentors out of the deal from Short Stack. And they are going to mentor me on whole front of the house with their whole 30-day training.
Wow.
Threw it in my lap, sat there, and I'm like, me? Yes, you. So I was so lucky. That day was just like electric for me, who came and sat at my table. So just a lot of stuff in the works.
Just mention, like, the day that people are speaking about is that on August 17th, as the kickoff to the Forward Festival, the Social Good Summit actually was a pitch session for a Social Good Accelerator program that Ken mentioned, that Collaboration for Good, my organization, Horizon Co-working in the Doyen group with Amy Gannon kind of put together, and it was actually our pilot program of the summit. So
we did I did a 5-minute pitch after taking lots of classes on how to do that and not talk for 30 minutes, and then we got to have people sign up to want to come to our table and work with us if they were interested in what our pitch was. And I had like a woman with a grant that wanted to come, a woman to help me with a marketing intern, Short Stack Eatery there, the library, and it was like just all filing almost. I was so overwhelmed that I actually didn't leave my house in my robe for the weekend because I just was like, wait, now I have to do all this work because it's all lined up. But it was great. So yeah, some great stuff came out of it.
Cool. And how was it for you, Ken?
It was amazing, absolutely amazing, and I agree with her in terms of just organizing all the ideas that other people who are doing this kind of work shared with me in terms of how to overcome some of the obstacles that I see. I guess not necessarily a down thing, but just it's a lot of work, and it will not be done overnight. It's a process. And it just feels like, we just did the Ironman. It feels like a marathon race of drudgery, but it's good. I mean, it's a good pain, if that makes sense. So very, very happy. And I've had 2 to 3 meetings that have been very promising in terms of getting like my business canvas together, which is something I haven't thought about. Glancing at my business plan, and then another tool that I'm working on as well. So and then revamping websites. It's amazing, and just a lot of work yet to be done.
I know a lot of people think that, you have a good idea, you go out and you do it, and part of that is you go out and you start an idea, but then you have like a lot of work to catch up on.
Ideas are cheap and easy.
And you're getting ready to start another segment of first course?
That's right.
Second course? No, I'm just kidding.
We're gonna stick with the name, I think. We were super lucky. We went to Kickstarter to raise some money after our test pilot was done. And the test pilot was paid for through a city grant, which was wonderful to be selected for. But we spent that money pretty quickly, and we wanted to keep doing what we're doing. So we went to Kickstarter, and we got enough money that we could sort of bridge ourselves to and through the fall. And we got more than we asked for even. So we're going to do another test. Our test was very successful, but we thought, why not just do another one and increase the opportunity? So we'll do that again with more students this time, and hopefully feeding from a wider selection of organizations that helped prepare the students.
Cool. And any projects coming up for you guys? I mean, you're currently right in the midst of one.
We are. I feel like we're always in one, though, because every year we have a goal of how many books we want to give away. Last year that was 5,000 books. We actually ended up giving away 10,000 books. This year our goal is 25,000 books, and we're just shy of 9,000 left to give away. We're on track. We gave away 4,000 books in August alone.
Wow.
So there's definitely more work to be done, but we're chugging along with our reading game, and our major push is always the need for more bilingual books, as well as more books that are diverse and show children of color.
Cool. And so I think I'd like to follow up with the question in terms of one of the areas that is, of course, of interest to me is collaboration. Mm-hmm. So I know each of you guys have been working with various partners and stuff. Can you talk about some of the people and organizations you've partnered with to help move you forward into kind of the next stage of what you guys are working on? And
I feel like our major one. Sorry,
go ahead. No, go.
I feel like our major groups are always our partners that we're kind of parallel with. We're all doing the same type of work, and I know technically they aren't pushing us forward, but they're really proving that there is such a need when we're working with organizations like Reach Dane, who do home visiting programs and preschool programming, and families are constantly cycling out because their children are outgrowing the programming. There's always new kids coming in, and so working with those programs, as well as organizations like we just finished up a program with MMSD and MSCR and a whole bunch of other folks for the Read Up program that happened during MSCR's programming for summer school.
And for those of you who don't know, that's Madison Schools and Community Recreation in Madison Metropolitan School District.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
That's one thing that I never realized how many acronyms there were until you start in the nonprofit sector.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like, who am I talking about? Thankfully, though, there are those acronyms, because if you started actually saying every name, your meetings would turn into 2-hour meetings instead of an hour. But just continuing to grow those partnerships that we have with not only the schools, but the different organizations have really allowed us to grow. And that's really where that 5,000 little goal that we had moving
ballooned.
Up to, ballooned into this crazy amount. And we're really proud of where we've come.
So for us, we have some really great partners. So one of our biggest ones is through United Way. We're part of the Hire Initiative, which is a group of nonprofits that work together under this umbrella, and there's even an employer board. So it's Food Fight Restaurants and American Family and all of these employers, some construction ones, every one of us, Urban League, Centro Hispano, Latino Academy, YWCA, we all teach something different. And we have built partners through that. One of our biggest ones is UW Hospital has been like so awesome to us. They hire our students at $15 an hour. Plus, they buy all of their cookies from us, which is about $100,000 a year contract. And in a nonprofit world, you're like, yes, keep them happy.
You guys have awesome cookies.
we do got some pretty awesome stuff. So, but yeah, so United Way, City, and then the local congregations, they were the first to invite us in. We're in 4 to 5 churches every weekend selling our products. So we're pretty lucky. We have some great partners.
Great. Ken?
Yes, I've had the awesome opportunity to work with Gina Podesta at Synergy, and that will be definitely an ongoing relationship, and just the resources that she's providing. Christina Libs with Move.
In Zendesk, yeah.
I'm sorry?
She's awesome.
No, yeah, and just project management and some other stuff that she got going on. A young lady who's an independent by Leslie Bruce, who's helping me with some website stuff as well. Beth Palucha. Forgive me for her name, but she also does a lot of project stuff as well. And again, it's folks that are doing things, and now I just need to make stuff happen. So I'm super excited, and this is just the tip of the iceberg.
For FoodWorks, I think collaborators isn't just a goal. It is an explicit goal we have, but it's also a matter of survival. We're brand new. We don't have decades of experience and credibility and networks in the communities that we want to serve. So we just have to go to them and say, hey, can we help you do what you do? Otherwise, it would take us, like I say, decades to learn. And I think also there are all of these people in Madison who are doing all this great work, and sometimes they're so busy doing that great work that we don't hear about it. And even though I'm interested in what I'm working on, there's a lot of things I don't know about. And sometimes I'm in a meeting and I'm embarrassed to learn that somebody else is doing something that is right up our alley, and I have not heard of it. So I think it's really important to kind of find out who's doing the work already and then support them if possible. And we kind of feel that with First Course, there's a little bit of glue that can connect together two things that already exist, and that's these employers that want good workers, and then, of course, these organizations that are community service organizations that help people get ready for jobs. So we're just a really narrow little slice in there. It just turned out that narrow slice was still missing.
And that type of, I think, social glue is absolutely necessary. It's one of the reasons why Preston and Amy and I started the Social Good Summit. But I also like to take a moment to invite all of you guys to the Madison Nonprofit Day conference that's coming up. It's also a great opportunity to meet other organizations, not just nonprofits. We actually have a nice blend of people who from the nonprofit world, the for-profit world, a lot of these hybrid organizations have started flocking, I guess, to the conference, because it's a great day of skills building, but it's also a great day of networking, and we've definitely seen more people taking advantage of.
How do we find out more about that?
So you can visit the MadisonNonprofitDay.org website to learn more about it, and it's coming up in October, Wednesday, October 11th, 2017. We have just a few more minutes. Any final words from each of you guys?
I just wanted to add one last one that is just super exciting, and I forgot, was to give a plug out to Tim Gerritsen of the Midwestern Games Alliance.
Oh,
and now
yes.
how will the role that games can play in terms of social learning and learning. So I'm excited in terms of what that's going to, the opportunity that's going to bring.
That's a good collaboration. That's a good
One of the
partnership.
last things I wanted to bring up, it was one of the last questions, and it's not really, we haven't really talked about it, but it was the talking about the social accelerator. Do I seem like I have a little trauma based on it? So it was like I've said already, I've done this work for a long time. That was the hardest thing I have ever done in my life, and one of the most rewarding things, to take my passion for this program into the world of business, and someone to show me that there's boundaries and you can still have passion and you can still have a place where you can say it all and feel it all and build it all, but at the same time not have to take 30 minutes to do it, and say it strategically so that you keep your audience engaged, and to say it in a place that who is your audience, knowing your audience. And so I just really wanted to give a plug that the classes, that our teachers, that our mentors that worked with us, and seriously, it was very hard work to do as someone who likes to talk about her stuff very passionately and long, but I will take that with me and use it forever. That's now the Just Bakery pitch.
That's excellent. And we're not done with you guys yet.
I hope not.
I got to totally second what she said. Taking a 30-minute or 40-minute spot down to 5 minutes is just, and I had given actually a couple of what I thought were pitches, and now I feel like, oh my God, I did my thing such a disservice after going through this program, and I'm like, ooh, give me another shot, because it is a skill, and you do have to hone it, and folks do know how to do that when you don't know how to do it. So thank you.
Thank you guys for all participating, and actually, I guess we have a few more minutes. Well, let me just basically thank WORT, W-O-R-T, for offering us this opportunity with the Access Hour. We'll also thank, I guess, like my partnerships with Collaboration for Good, Horizon Co-working, Preston Austin. We started working more firmly together, I think about three or 4 years ago, and that's just been the Social Good Summit, the Data for Impact Conference, and even some of the stuff that we're going to be doing at this year's Madison Nonprofit Day Conference has all come out of that collaboration, which has been great. And Ken, looks like you have.
What date is that Nonprofit Day Conference?
It's Wednesday, October 11th. It's all day conference. I like to tell people that they will be exhausted if you stay the entire day. It starts from starts at 8 a.m. is like the first set of workshops and goes to about 6:30 p.m. It's a pretty intense day, but we also try to pack it with some fun opportunities. The Honorable Judge Reverend Everett Mitchell will be our keynote speaker this year. And then Megan Watt of Dream Catalyst, I believe is her organization, will be doing the afternoon plenary, which is actually about forging better connections and working better with each other. And it's interactive like she does it, so that should be great. And that's our time. Thank you so much. I didn't think about it.
Please remember that this show relies on your ideas. So call us at 608-256-2001 during business hours, or write us at Access Hour, one word, at WORTFM.org, and lay your proposal for a show on us. Music, talk, comedy, drama, or whatever can be conveyed over the radio. The Access Hour is anything you want it to be. And you're listening to WORT, 89.9 FM and HD in Madison, Wisconsin. This has been the Access Hour. I have to say again, WORT needs your help to answer pledge phones during our fall pledge drive, which is coming up in October, the 1st through the 14th. Sign up as soon as you can at our website, wortfm.org, or call 256-2001 during business hours. Thanks again for the Madison nonprofits for appearing. It's been a wonderful evening. Something wonderful is now about